Okay, so we are talking about the API endpoints, and we are creating this post method. So what I want here is, okay, so localhost 3000 slash users slash login पे अगर मैं post request करता हूँ, I want this method to be executed. Okay, but let me start the app first, and the command is same ng serve API. Okay. So this should start the API server on port 3000, which is configured in the main TS here. Okay, so now it's working. Um, okay, so let me try this. So at this point it should not be working क्योंकि हमने इसको register नहीं किया कहीं पे भी. It is saying 404 not found. ठीक है. Actually, I want this endpoint to be, instead of this, I want it to be API slash v1 slash users. Okay. So we'll see how we can add this as a prefix globally to all the endpoints. Why I am doing this prefix, and does anyone have a clue why I am putting this v1 before the endpoint? Anyone has an idea?
Eventually, I mean, there could be multiple versions of the APIs being served from the same application.
Yes, exactly. Yes, yes. So what happens is, I have seen it generally that when the application starts, the functionality is limited, and we write things on both the sides, on UI and the API, based on that requirement. But what happens eventually is that the requirements change, and then the existing API might not be able to support the new data structures, and we don't want to break the existing users. So what we do is we write new controllers, new folders with the new functionality, and then just change the prefix for those endpoints. Okay, and then we also have multiple versions for the application also. Those are hosted on different routes. Okay, so in order to do that, we'll from the very beginning we'll create a folder inside app called v1. So I'll put both of these inside v1. So v1 has users and workshops. Now suppose when I release the v2 version, I'll create another folder v2, and then I'll put that code inside there. Okay. All right. So now if I go to this uh, main file, before the main file, I'll create another file called controllers.ts. So here again, I'll create a router. Okay, so it is imported, and I'll export this one also, right? Now I am going to import controllers. Okay, app के अंदर v1 and then users controller, from which I'll import router as users controller. Okay, and on this router I'll say router dot use, I'll say users. Okay, I'll make sense in a moment. So let me also put this one inside here actually. Okay, so actually this controllers file is related to the v1 version. Okay, uh, so now inside the main file, I'm going to import that app v1 controllers router as v1 controllers. Okay, and I'll remove this section and write app.use, and I want to say API slash v1. Whenever the request comes here, forward it to this controller or this router, uh, and then inside this router I have configured that if the request is for users, forward it to this router, and here I am seeing if there's a post request for login endpoint, do this stuff. Okay, so this is kind of chained. So at this point, the request should be working. If I make a post request now, so I'm seeing this hello world, but I want to emphasize कि ये चल कैसे रहा है, ठीक है? It is important to know how it is working. So I know that in the start of the application, this main TS is going to start. So it is bringing in Express, and then it is bringing in this controller from the V1 folder. Then it creates an instance of the app, एंड हेयर आई एम सेइंग कि जब भी कोई रिक्वेस्ट आएगी ना API slash v1 पे, then forward that request to this router. Okay, this is just a configuration, and then I have defined this port number, and then I am listening to that port, and the server starts. Okay, at this point nothing has happened, कोई request नहीं आई है, the server has just started on port 3000, and eventually what happens is एक request आती है port 3000 पे, and the path for that request is API v1 users login. Okay, so now when the request comes in, I check अच्छा कि क्या प्रीफिक्स API v1 है, अगर तो है तो उस रिक्वेस्ट को यहाँ फॉरवर्ड कर दो. ओके, और जब रिक्वेस्ट यहाँ आती है, देन आफ्टर API v1 इट चेक्स कि क्या रिक्वेस्ट का बाकी का पाथ यूजर्स के साथ मैच करता है, एंड इट मैचेस, सो इट फॉरवर्ड्स द रिक्वेस्ट टू दिस राउटर, एंड देन हेयर इट चेक्स कि यूजर्स के बाद अगर लॉगिन लिखा हुआ है एंड इट इज़ अ पोस्ट रिक्वेस्ट, तो ये एंड पॉइंट ये फंक्शन को कॉल कर दो. ओके, एंड इसके अंदर से मैं एक जेसन स्ट्रिंग रिटर्न करा रहा हूँ, दैट इज हेलो वर्ल्ड, एंड दैट इज द रीजन आई सी इट ऑन द पोस्टमैन. एनी क्वेश्चंस एट दिस पॉइंट?
अगर सर हम एपीआई v1 और यूजर्स ना यूज करें उसका प्रीफिक्स, मतलब डायरेक्टली जैसे पहले लॉगिन वर्क कर रहा था,
तो इट इज़ पॉसिबल कि मैं इसको बोल लूँ कि ऐप यूज़, जब भी रूट पे रिक्वेस्ट आएगी आई वांट टू गो टू v1 कंट्रोलर्स, ठीक है, एंड देन हेयर आई थिंक दिस शुड वर्क. लेट्स ट्राई, आई एम नॉट श्योर अबाउट दिस. तो अभी हमने उसको ऐसा कन्फिगर कर दिया है कि सीधा लॉगिन पे पोस्ट रिक्वेस्ट जाए तो ये चलना चाहिए. नहीं चल रहा क्योंकि यहाँ पे एक्चुअली ये जो स्लैश है ना, दैट इज़ कॉजिंग द इशू. सपोज मैं यहाँ पे यूज़र्स लिख देता हूँ, एंड देन यहाँ पे भी मैं यूज़र्स लिख देता हूँ, देन आई एक्सपेक्ट दिस टू वर्क. अच्छा, इसको सेव भी करना है क्या? ओके, सो दिस इज़ वर्किंग. लेट मी ट्राई दैट वन ऑल्सो. अगर मैं इसको भी डिलीट कर देता हूँ. ओके, दिस इज़ ऑल्सो वर्किंग. सो इन दिस सेटअप मैंने उसको कोई भी प्रीफिक्स नहीं बताया. मैं उसको कह रहा हूँ कि अगर रूट पे रिक्वेस्ट आ रही है तो v1 कंट्रोलर्स पे फॉरवर्ड कर दो, और यहाँ पे भी अगर उसके पाथ के आगे, रूट के आगे कुछ भी नहीं लिखा हुआ है तो यूज़र्स पे फॉरवर्ड कर दो, मतलब स्टिल द रिक्वेस्ट रीचेस दिस यूज़र्स कंट्रोलर. और अगर रूट के बाद लॉगिन लिखा हुआ है विच इज़ देयर, देन आई एम सेइंग कि ये रिस्पॉन्स सेंड कर दो. ठीक है, सो दिस इज ऑल्सो वर्किंग. इज दिस द क्वेश्चन यू वर आस्किंग?
यस सर, एग्जैक्टली. थैंक यू फॉर क्लियरिंग.
ऑलराइट.
तो सर इसका यूज करके हम डिफरेंट मतलब पाथ दे सकते हैं अलग अलग कंट्रोलर को एक्सेस करने के लिए.
एग्जैक्टली. तो अब क्या होगा कि जितनी भी यूजर्स की रिक्वेस्ट है ना, वो सारी की सारी मैं इस कंट्रोलर में लिखने वाला हूँ, एंड आई नो कि इस कंट्रोलर के अंदर जो भी रिक्वेस्ट लिखी है ना, दैट हैज़ अ प्रीफिक्स ऑफ v1 slash users. Okay,
Okay, sir.
the directory structure is telling me what is the path for this controller.
Right.
ठीक है. So इस एंड पॉइंट तक पहुंचने के लिए path should have been API v1 users login. Okay, make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to add a database. Anyone has experience with APIs before? Do we have anyone?
I don't have.
Okay, cool. Okay, so to add the database, um, suppose we do the database tomorrow. Uh, I want to just quickly go through the API stuff first. So let's suppose we have the users as a constant array. Okay, let me see what other properties we had there. User name, ID, or role. That was a string, right? Number. And the user role is an enumeration. Okay. Okay, so with this, I know that the request is going to have some body, but in order to get that body, I need to include a package called body parser. I can simply install it here. What I'll do here is I'll say npm install body parser, okay, dash dash save. And since I only have one package JSON, all the dependencies throughout this application are going to be listed inside this package JSON. ठीक है, तो सारे के सारे node modules, be it the UI dependencies or the API dependencies, all are going to live on the root of the application. This setup is helpful अगर आपके एक ही project के अंदर multiple UI या multiple API applications हैं and they all are reusing some of the dependencies, so you don't have to separately install them for each of them. ठीक है, now suppose I had 4 different micro APIs और उन माइक्रो एपीआईज के अंदर सभी में अगर मुझे बॉडी पार्सर चाहिए, सो आई डोंट हैव टू इंक्लूड बॉडी पार्सर सेपरेटली फॉर ऑल ऑफ देम. आई कैन डू इट ओनली वंस एंड आई विल बी एबल टू यूज इट एवरीवेयर.
Rohit, what if different modules which we are using, the application, different components of the application might be using different version of those modules? I mean, is there a possibility like that?
What NX preaches is we should not be doing that, because if we start to do that, it is not maintainable. Why I'm saying this is, सपोज आप एक ऐसे प्रोजेक्ट पे काम कर रहे हो जिसके ना 2 पोर्टल्स हैं. वन इज बोथ सपोजिंगली बोथ आर इन एंगुलर. One is using Angular 4 and the other one is on Angular 9. Okay. In that case, you have one of two options. Either you specify all the dependencies for Angular 4 and 9 both in that package JSON. Okay. और अदरवाइज मतलब मेरे ख्याल से वो चीज़ भी चलेगी नहीं अगर आप एक ही प्रोजेक्ट के एक ही पैकेज जेसन के अंदर 2 अलग-अलग एंगुलर वर्जन्स को कर लोगे ऐड. आई डोंट थिंक इट इज़ गोइंग टू वर्क. So no, I don't think it is anyway going to work. No other options also.
So any such code has to be brought to a state where when it works with the latest packages or the packages we are using recently, right?
Yeah, even if you don't use the latest packages, you have to be consistent throughout the packages. ठीक है, मतलब अगर आपके 4 पोर्टल्स हैं और चारों एंगुलर पे हैं, then ideally they should be all on the same version.
Okay.
Okay, so अभी हमने body parser यूज कर लिया. So at this point, I should be able to access the request.body parameter, and for now I am just sending it back in the response of the API. So at this point अगर मैं यहाँ पे body में एक raw JSON payload डालता हूँ, okay, suppose I send this and I have changed that to API v1 users login. हमने बॉडी पार्सर ऐड तो कर लिया, बट हमने उसको कॉन्फ़िगर नहीं किया एप्लीकेशन के अंदर. So as soon as the application is created, I need to configure body parser. So I'll say app.use this takes some properties, body parser.json. Type. Okay, so I have said I want to be using JSON payloads in the application, so I should now be able to access it. Okay, so now if I see I am able to send JSON payloads to the application, and it is able to understand that payload using the request.body property. Okay, previously I was not getting anything because Express was not parsing the JSON payload which I was sending there. Okay, but when I have configured this application to use this JSON middleware, it can now take the request, extract any payload which it has as JSON, and then put it inside the body property. So one thing important here to understand is एक्सप्रेस की एप्लीकेशन चलती कैसे है. जितने भी मिडलवेयर्स मैं यहाँ पे कन्फिगर करता जा रहा हूँ ना, ईदर विद द मेथड यूज और एनी ऑफ दोज गेट पुट पोस्ट डिलीट, दे ऑल वर्क इन अ सिंक्रोनस फैशन, मतलब सीक्वेंशियल फैशन बेसिकली. जो मिडलवेयर पहले रजिस्टर्ड है, इट इज़ गोइंग टू फायर फर्स्ट, देन द नेक्स्ट वन एंड देन द नेक्स्ट वन. ठीक है. तो इस एप्लीकेशन के अंदर जो सबसे पहला मिडलवेयर रजिस्टर हुआ है ना, दैट इज दिस वन, app.use JSON. This JSON middleware is going to watch every request which comes into the application. Every request is going to go inside this middleware. It is going to extract its JSON payload and put it inside the body property. ठीक है. And then it will forward the request to the next middleware. And the next middleware is registered with this thing. And this guy checks if the path matches, it forwards it to this router, otherwise it does not do anything and let it pass through it and goes to the next middleware. अभी इसके आगे कोई middleware नहीं है, but अगर होता तो उसके पास चली जाती request. ठीक है. Is it okay at this point?
हाँ जी सर.
Okay, so now since I am able to access body, I'll extract out the body in a variable here. Okay, so I want to check if the credentials are valid for any of these users. So I'll say users.find for every user if the user dot username matches credentials dot username and user dot password matches credentials dot password, then there is a match. And if there is a found user, I will send that user back as a response. Okay. Otherwise, I'll send a 404 or something like that. So to the default status of this JSON method is 200. If I want to change the status method, status value, suppose I want 404 or 401 for unauthorized or unauthenticated, I don't remember exactly. Uh, for 401, I want to say message invalid credentials. Okay. So at this point, if I don't pass in the password, I should get invalid credentials and the status code should be 401. Okay, so it says unauthorized and I have received this message invalid credentials. और अभी अगर मैं password भी साथ में भेजता हूँ, which is admin, so I get back that complete object. Okay, is it fine? So this is the very minimum implementation of a login method. Actually, before sending this one, I want to delete the password property so that the passwords do not travel over the internet. Okay. So this is the maximum I want to send in a response, send in as a response. Okay, is this fine?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now let's go to the UI application and then implement this login functionality there. Okay, so I'm going to this login function. Previously, it was mocking this request. So now I can go in. Instead of now directly returning back this user, what I'll do is I'll first of all create a constructor because I want that API service. And this is going to come from common HTTP. Here I'll make a post request http dot post. Okay, and I want to use the environment variable for this one so that I don't have to write the complete URL every time. So in the environment file, I'll create a variable called API base, which is going to point to http localhost 3000 slash API slash v1. Okay, I'll put this one in the production also. Okay. So now what I'll do is I'll take that string from environment.api base, append it append it with users slash login, and in the body of the request, let's see, yeah, in the body of the request I want to send these credentials. Okay, and I want to return this. So on a success, it is going to return me the user, right? And this is complaining because it is an object. Mm, I have to explicitly cast it. So let's see how it behaves now. Okay, so I am on this login screen. Let's see the network tab first. Okay, so this is empty at this point. I'll say admin, and the password I'll put in incorrect one. And we should have an API call. Okay, so it has failed with the HTTP localhost. Why is it failing? Oh, so there is another problem now. There is a cross origin request because this application is running on port 4200 and the API is running on port 3000. So these are two different domains. So by default they are not allowed to communicate to each other. इसके दो possible solutions हैं. पहला पॉसिबल सोल्यूशन तो ये है कि ये दोनों ही सेम पोर्ट पे रेंडर हो और दूसरा सोल्यूशन ये है कि जो एपीआई है दैट शुड allow cross origin requests. The easy one for now is allowing cross origin requests. I'll do that. Um, so let me add another package that is called course npm install cors dash dash save. And for that one also we have to configure it inside this main. Okay. Okay. So this is installed now. Okay. So as we have configured this middleware, I'm first going to configure codes and then I'll configure JSON. Okay. So origin star methods star. Let me first check the documentation for this one. Require course and then where's that? Origin, yeah, that's correct. Origin methods and headers. Okay, this should work. Let's see. Let me again try to make a request from here. Oh, okay. So now I have got 401, which is an expected response. क्योंकि मैंने जो password भेजा था, that was incorrect. I had sent 1234 instead of the correct password admin. Now if I send admin, so this was successful and it has redirected me to the dashboard. Okay, so it looks like it is working. One thing I want to change here is on an error I want to show that notification to the user so that the user knows what is happening here. For now we can add a snack bar. I'll go into the app module. one module from material is called mat snack bar. Okay, so I'll go here in the login component. I have subscribed to the success block, and if there is an error, let me inject that snack bar service. Okay, so if there is an error, I want to say this dot snackbar dot open and error occurred. Okay, and then the duration, I want it to be 4 seconds. Okay, so let's see it. So now if I put incorrect username and password, so it says an error occurred. Okay, admin, the password is correct. No, what's wrong here? This is strange. admin यही तो था यार. Oh, I know what happened. Since that was an in-memory database और हमने उसमें से password delete कर दिया था, so that is why it has deleted it from this array also. This is the same thing, that same reference pointing to this object, and if I delete it from here, the original one also does not have it now. So what I want to do instead is I'll dereference that object. Okay, and then I'll pass this updated object. So this should work now.
यहाँ पे सर अब हम जस्ट रिस्पॉन्स में से पासवर्ड हटा रहे हैं.
हाँ बिल्कुल, ओरिजिनल एरे में से नहीं हटेगा वो.
हाँ.
So what I have done here is मैं उसको dereference करने के लिए उसको spread operator use कर रहा हूँ यहाँ पे. So this spread operator is going to copy all of the keys and values into a new object, which is this containing object, and then the reference will break क्योंकि वो अब clone बन गया उसका. ठीक है, this is called shallow cloning. Okay, so if I put the correct password now, I go to this dashboard. Otherwise, if the password is incorrect, I see that error message there. और इस टाइम पे अगर मैं डैशबोर्ड पे रीडायरेक्ट करता हूँ, I should not be allowed to do that. It redirects me back to the login. अभी हमें एक log out का बटन बनाना है, so that if the user logs out, then we send him back to this login screen. So we'll put a button here on the dashboard screen. So we have a toolbar which has one button right now, which is the menu button. Then it has this title, and the next thing I want to do here is I want to put a button, call it mat button. Color is going to be ascent, and I will say log out. Okay, let's see how it looks like. वो अभी यहीं पे आ जाएगा. I want to style it so that it comes to there. I'll wrap this section inside a div, and then on the toolbar I'll put a class justify content between. Okay, so the logout has come over here where I wanted it. Now I just want to put a click listener. Okay, और हमने स्टोरेज को क्लियर किया था, कहाँ किया था वो? Did we clear the storage? Credentials नहीं किया था. Okay, so I'll put a method here called logout. इसके अंदर मैं सबसे पहले तो लोकल स्टोरेज को क्लियर कर दूंगा. एक्चुअली स्टोरेज सर्विस यूज़ कर रहे हैं हम, सो आई इंजेक्ट द स्टोरेज सर्विस. Okay, so I'll say this dot storage dot clear. Okay, and then I want to redirect the user back to the login screen. For that, I'll inject the other service called router. Okay, so I'll say this dot router dot navigate. This takes an array, and the first segment of this is login. All right, so this logout button should now start working. हमने HTML में सेव नहीं किया शायद. Okay. So now I have come to the login screen, and if I try to go back to the dashboard home, it is not allowing me to do that. This is because there is a route guard activated, which is not allowing us to go to the dashboard if the credentials do not exist in the storage. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Right. So yeah, this is it for today. Any questions till this point? आज हमने कुछ ज़्यादा किया नहीं है. इसके अंदर हमने एक API endpoint लिखा है, which is versioned by nature. It is inside v1, and then the path of the controller is defined by the directory structure. It is v1 users, then the name of the endpoint login. और हमने ऑलरेडी जो UI पे सर्विसेज लिखी थी वो हमने इस तरह से लिखी थी that we have to change the minimum stuff. We were already passing in this observable, which is also the return type of this HTTP method. Okay, so everything except this service is still the same. We have only made a change here क्योंकि हम credentials यहाँ तक लेके आ रहे थे और उसके basis पे हम एक mock user return कर रहे थे. Things are still kind of mock, but now they are coming out of an API. Now the only thing we have to do is, instead of this static array of users, we want to bring this data from a database. So it will start to look like an application soon.
सर वो कोर्स वाले का समझाना, जैसे हमने उसको कंपैटिबल बनाया कि एक दूसरे के साथ कम्युनिकेट कर सके डिफरेंट पोर्ट्स पे.
Okay, codes के लिए ना. तो generally I do not add this package codes. होता क्या है कि there is an origin, a term called origin, and origin is a combination of a protocol, host name, and then the port. तीन हिस्से मिलके origin बनाते हैं. अगर मैं यहाँ पे बताऊँ आपको, the protocol here is HTTP, domain is localhost, and the port is 4200. So when I combine all of these three parts, it creates an origin. और API का origin जो है उसके अंदर प्रोटोकॉल और डोमेन तो सेम है पर पोर्ट अलग है. So practically they are two different origins, and one origin is not allowed to communicate to another origin by default because it is kind of cross site scripting. आप अगर एक स्क्रिप्ट से दूसरी स्क्रिप्ट को इन्वोक कर पा रहे हो, then you can screw the entire thing. Okay, so that is blocked by default on the browser. But if I want to any origin to access this API, I can allow that using this cross origin middleware. Now what happens is, browser जब request करता है ना किसी भी API endpoint के लिए, कोई cross origin request करता है जैसे ही, तो सबसे पहले वो ना एक options request भेजता है. ठीक है, and that is why it is recommended that we do not implement options request, because it is actually the one which is going to tell the browser कि ये request allowed है या नहीं. जैसे मैं post कर रहा हूँ ना, अगर मैं वहाँ पे देखूँ तो वो ना 2 request भेजेगा instead of 1. If I have a closer look on the network tab. It is not showing at this point, but the theory behind this is it is going to make 2 requests, one for the options and the other one the actual post request. Okay. In the options request, this server responds with a success or a failure. If the options request fails, then it won't actually trigger the post request. Okay. But if the options request is successful, then it makes the post request and thing starts to work. और यहाँ पे मैंने उसको बोला कि सारे ओरिजिन्स अलाउड हैं इस एपीआई को कॉल करने के लिए. किसी भी मेथड को वो कॉल करें अलाउड है. दैट कैन बी गेट, पुट, पोस्ट, ऑप्शंस, डिलीट, पैच, एनीथिंग. और कोई भी हेडर्स भेजें, ऑल आर अलाउड. तो ये मैंने
इसी पे सर कि हम यहाँ पे स्पेसिफाई कर सकते हैं सिक्योरिटी को एनहांस करने के लिए.
हाँ, एक्चुअली हमें इसको यूज़ ही नहीं करना चाहिए. वी शुड यूज़ दिस ओनली स्पेयरिंगली, अगर बहुत ज़्यादा नेसेसरी है तभी. अदरवाइज वी शुड नॉट यूज़ इट. There are other ways to do the same thing. I generally do not add this package in my applications. What I do is I host the UI from the API. ठीक है. So it is kind of server side rendered, but it is still a single page application. And at that point वो दोनों का domain और origin same होगा.
सेम पोर्ट से.
हाँ, same port से वो run हो रहा होगा. So we don't require this plugin at that point.
नहीं सर, वैसे कोई मेथड है मतलब इसके बजाय जैसे हम यहाँ पे स्टार लगा रहे हैं सभी को अलाउ कर रहे हैं तो कोई.
हाँ, हम कर सकते हैं ना. यहाँ पे सिर्फ मैं ऐसा लिख दूँ, ये शायद नहीं चाहिए था. ओरिजिन के लिए लोकल होस्ट 4200. Okay, I think I need to get on this call now. So suppose initially I don't allow 4200, I allow 4300. Okay, let's try to make a call. Okay, so it is saying an error occurred, and the error should be on the console that cross origin policy has blocked this request. Now if I change this to 4200, और वैसे अगर इस रिक्वेस्ट के मैं रिस्पॉन्स को देखूँ ना, रिस्पॉन्स इसने दिखाया ही नहीं. चलो छोड़ो. सो नाउ इट इज़ अलाउइंग मी, क्योंकि अब मैंने ओरिजिन जो अलाउड है उसके अंदर 4200 डाल दिया. ठीक है. सो वी कैन ईदर सेट ओनली सम डोमेन्स और वी कैन पुट स्टार हेयर टू अलाउ ऑल ऑफ देम.
मल्टीपल के लिए कोमा सेपरेशन करनी होगी.
एग्जैक्टली, मल्टीपल के लिए कॉमास डालते हैं.
ठीक है सर, थैंक यू.
ठीक है. बाय द वे, दिस इज़ नॉट अ सिक्योरिटी थिंग. ऐसा ऐड कर देने से यू कैन नेवर ब्लॉक एनीवन फ्रॉम मेकिंग अ रिक्वेस्ट टू योर सर्वर. दिस इज जस्ट द ब्राउजर्स हु adhere to this cross origin policy. अगर आप सर्वर टू सर्वर रिक्वेस्ट कर रहे हो then this thing does not work. मतलब आप किसी भी डोमेन से रिक्वेस्ट करोगे from a server, it will allow you to do that. Only browsers make an options request, and that is where this cross origin thing exists. This is not something related to security of your application. This is not secure. मतलब अगर मैं यहाँ पे कुछ भी अलाउ नहीं करता हूँ, that doesn't mean कि कहीं से रिक्वेस्ट आ नहीं सकती है. सर्वर से रिक्वेस्ट कर सकता हूँ मैं.
ओके सर.
ठीक है.
हाँ जी.
ओके. सो